This is the story of two broken people, a lonely country road, and a moment that would change Ethan Cole's life forever. That foggy October morning, he didn't just find an injured woman on the side of the road, he found the beginning of something that would turn his whole world around. The morning fog was hanging low, hugging the ground. Ethan's boots crunched on the gravel as he walked down County Road 27, the kind of road that maybe sees 3 cars on a busy day. He'd been walking for about 40 minutes from his old farmhouse, heading to Mr. Hutchinson's place to help fix a barn roof. The pay wasn't great, but when you're a single dad to a 6-year-old, something is always better than nothing. That's when he saw it. At first it looked like a pile of dark clothes tossed in the drainage ditch. But the shape was wrong. His stomach tightened. That wasn't clothing, that was a person. "Hey, can you hear me?" Ethan broke into a run. The closer he got, the worse it looked. A woman was lying half in the ditch, body twisted at an unnatural angle, business clothes torn and muddy, face swollen and bruised. Not the kind of bruising you get from falling, the kind you get when someone uses their fists. Ethan dropped to his knees beside her, pressed 2 fingers to her neck. Pulse. Faint. But there. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" No response. Her skin was ice cold. This wasn't an accident. Nobody just falls into a ditch and ends up like this. Somebody beat her and dumped her out here. Then he noticed her legs, thin, muscle-wasted like she hadn't walked in years. And in the mud beside her, wheel tracks. A wheelchair had been here, which meant someone had attacked a paralyzed woman and left her to die on an empty road. Ethan looked up and down the street. Nothing. No cars, no houses close enough, no cell service. The nearest phone was at Mrs. Dottie's place, a 1/4 mile from his farmhouse. He checked her breathing again, shallow, struggling. She didn't have hours. So he decided fast. He slid his arms under her and lifted her the way he used to carry his daughter when she was little. She was light, too light. And when her head dropped against his chest, she let out a weak, unconscious sound of pain. "I've got you. You're not dying out here, not today." The walk back felt like miles. His arms burned, his back screamed, but he didn't stop. Every few minutes he paused, checked her breathing, and kept going. Finally, through the trees, his old peeling paint farmhouse came into view. Run-down, sagging porch, roof that still needed fixing, but right now it was the only place he could take her. He shouldered the door open, carried her straight to his bedroom, laid her on the bed, and grabbed the first aid kit from the hall. Up close, it was even clearer, the muscle loss in her legs. That was years of paralysis. The finger-shaped bruises on her arms. Someone had held her down. The scraped hands. She'd tried to fight. This wasn't random. This was personal. Ethan knew he couldn't just leave her lying there. Her breathing was faint, and out here there was no signal, no doctor, no help. He grabbed his jacket and ran out the door toward Mrs. Dottie's farmhouse across the road. He pounded on the door. "Mrs. Dottie, it's Ethan. I need your phone, quick." The elderly woman opened up, startled by the panic in his eyes. "Good heavens, Ethan, what's going on?" "There's a woman, hurt bad. Someone beat her and dumped her near the ditch. She's barely alive." Without another question, Mrs. Dottie handed over her old rotary phone. Ethan dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency?" "This is Ethan Cole, 1247 County Road 27. I found a woman on the roadside. She's unconscious, looks assaulted, paralyzed maybe, her body's ice cold. Please, I need an ambulance right now." He listed every detail he could think of, pulse rate, breathing, injuries, her condition. Then came the words that made his stomach drop. "Sir, we've got a major pileup on Interstate 88. The nearest available ambulance is approximately 3 hours out." Ethan clenched his jaw. 3 hours? She doesn't have 3 hours. "Sir, do what you can to keep her warm and conscious." "We're coming." He slammed the receiver down and bolted back out into the fog. When he burst through his own front door, she was exactly where he'd left her, still pale and deathly cold. He covered her with another blanket, straightened her head, and dragged a chair beside the bed. There was only one thing left to do: keep her alive. Every few minutes he checked her pulse, tested her breath, talked softly just to fill the silence. "Hey, you're safe, okay? Whoever hurt you, they're gone. You made it to my place. Just keep breathing." Time crawled by. An hour, then more. And then, her eyelids flickered. Ethan leaned in. "Hey, easy. You're okay now." Her eyes fluttered open halfway, wild with fear. Her lips trembled, the words breaking apart as she spoke. "Please, don't let them find me." "Nobody's finding you here," Ethan said firmly. "You're safe." She struggled for air, whispering again. "My chair. They said I wouldn't need it. They burned it." The sentence hit Ethan like a punch. They destroyed her wheelchair deliberately. Whoever did this hadn't just wanted her dead, they'd wanted her humiliated first. He swallowed hard. "Who did this to you?" Her eyes darted side to side, unfocused. Then she whispered a name. "Veronica, my sister." She just watched. A single tear slipped down her cheek, and then she went limp again. Ethan stayed right there, watching her shallow breaths. Hours passed until finally, distant sirens cut through the fog. Hours and 47 minutes later, the ambulance arrived. 2 EMTs rushed in, assessing her quickly. Severe bruising, long-term muscle atrophy, likely sedatives in her system, one muttered. Then he looked at Ethan. "Sir, whoever did this wanted her dead." "I figured," Ethan said quietly. "She told me they burned her chair," said her sister watched. The medic's face darkened. "All right, we're taking her to St. Catherine's in Bloomington. You can follow us if you'd like." "I'm not letting her go alone," Ethan replied. "I'll bring my daughter." He hurried back across the road to Mrs. Dottie's kitchen. 6-year-old Belle was finishing her cereal when she saw him. "Daddy, you're back!" "Yeah, sweetheart, we need to go help someone. There's a lady who's really hurt. I found her this morning." "Is she hurt bad?" "Pretty bad, yeah." Belle hopped down from her chair, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Then she needs Mr. Bunny. He always helps me when I'm scared." Ethan smiled softly. "Then Mr. Bunny's coming with us." They climbed into his old truck and followed the ambulance all the way to St. Catherine's. As soon as they arrived, a police officer approached. "Sir, Officer Martinez. You're the one who found the victim?" "That's right. Found her off County Road 27, unconscious, beaten, no wheelchair." "She mentioned a name, Veronica," said her sister watched. The officer scribbled notes, then met Ethan's eyes. "Between you and me, this looks like attempted murder. Whoever did this knew she couldn't fight back. But she's alive, because you didn't walk away." Belle tugged on Ethan's sleeve. "Daddy, can we stay till the sleeping lady wakes up?" Ethan looked at her and nodded. "Yeah, baby girl, we can wait." And so they did. A man, his daughter, and a stranger they didn't even know, sitting together in that cold, sterile hospital hallway, because walking away simply wasn't an option. The hours dragged. Ethan and Belle were still in the waiting area, those hard plastic hospital chairs that make even good news feel slow. Belle was on the floor with crayons the nurse had given her, drawing a picture of the hurt lady and a big pink rabbit. Ethan just kept watching the hallway, waiting for someone in scrubs to say something. At last, a doctor in blue walked over. "Mr. Cole?" Ethan jumped to his feet. "Yeah, that's me. How is she?" The doctor let out the kind of breath people give when things were close. "She's in rough shape, but she's alive. Critical but stable. She's got multiple contusions, 3 cracked ribs, and we found evidence of heavy sedatives in her system. Someone drugged her before they beat her. This wasn't an accident." Ethan nodded slowly. He'd already known that. Now it was confirmed. "Can we see her?" "Not yet. She's still unconscious, and we want to keep her that way for a bit. But I will say this, if you hadn't brought her in when you did, we'd be having a very different conversation." Belle tugged on Ethan's sleeve. "Can I put my picture in her room?" The doctor smiled. "I think she'd love that when she wakes up." The doctor walked away. Ethan sat back down, rubbing his face with both hands. He still couldn't shake it. Who does that to a woman who can't even walk? Belle, in that small way kids say the most honest thing, asked, "Daddy, why would somebody hurt her if she didn't do anything?" Ethan looked at her for a long second. Sometimes people want something she has, and sometimes family is the one that hurts you. Then we can be her family, Belle said simply, and somehow that stuck in Ethan's chest. About an hour later, the cop came back. Same one, Officer Martinez. This time he wasn't just asking questions. He had answers. "Mr. Cole, we were able to identify her." Ethan stood. "Okay, who is she?" Martinez opened the folder he was carrying and turned a photo toward him. "Her name is Valentina Cross." The name meant nothing to Belle, but Ethan blinked. "Cross, as in Cross Technologies?" "Exactly," the officer said. "She's the CEO. She went missing 2 days ago. There's been a statewide alert out for her." Ethan looked through the glass toward the room where she lay motionless, bruised IV in her arm, and tried to imagine that woman in a boardroom, in charge of a multi-billion-dollar company. "This wasn't random, was it?" he asked quietly. Martinez shook his head. "No, we're pretty sure this came from inside. She controls about 70% of her company. Someone, or a few someones, decided a woman in a wheelchair shouldn't be running it. You said she mentioned someone named Veronica?" "Yeah, said her wheelchair was burned. Said her sister watched." The officer's jaw tightened. "That matches what we're hearing. We're looking at a stepsister and possibly members of the board. This looks like an attempted removal. And I don't mean from the company. I mean permanently." Belle was listening wide-eyed. "What's a CEO?" she asked. Ethan smiled faintly. "It means she's the boss of a really big company, honey." "But she still got hurt," Belle said. "So being the boss doesn't stop bad people?" Officer Martinez actually answered her. "No, sweetheart. It doesn't. Sometimes it makes bad people show up faster." He turned back to Ethan. "We're going to need a full statement. Exact time you found her, what position she was in, everything she said, especially the 'they burned my chair' part." "That's unusual." "You'll have it," Ethan said. "I'll testify if I have to." Martinez nodded, this time with a hint of respect. "You may have just saved one of the most important women in this state, Mr. Cole." Ethan shrugged. "I didn't know she was important. I just knew she was dying." "That," the officer said, "is why you're the good guy in this story." Then he left. A little while later, a nurse let them step inside her room, just for a minute. Valentina looked different in hospital light. Less like a victim in a ditch, more like a person someone had tried very hard to break. Her face was still swollen, but you could see it now. Refined features, expensive haircut, someone used to being in control. Belle tiptoed over, taped her drawing on the wall, and set Mr. Bunny on the bedside table. "There," she whispered. "Now you won't be lonely." Ethan watched from the doorway. Somewhere on a cold, foggy road he'd picked up a stranger. Here in a hospital room he was starting to realize this wasn't over. This was the beginning. The next morning was the same routine. Ethan brought Belle with him to the hospital again. The nurse at the desk recognized them, smiled, and waved them in. "She's still sleeping," the nurse said, "but her vitals look good. We left the drawing your little girl put up. We thought she'll like it when she wakes up." Belle jumped in right away. "Can I put another one?" The nurse laughed. "Go ahead, artist." When they stepped into the room, Ethan saw her properly in daylight for the first time. Some of the swelling had gone down. The bandages weren't covering as much, and her real features were starting to show. Fine, elegant, the kind of face you see in business magazines. It still felt unreal that someone this powerful had been beaten and dumped like trash. Belle walked over quietly, straightened Mr. Bunny on the side table, and whispered, "Miss Valentina." We came again. She was still unconscious. Time kept moving slow. Ethan sat in the chair in the corner, sometimes pretending to scroll his phone. Still no signal. Sometimes just watching Valentina's face, trying to imagine what she'd been through. Then, right around 11 a.m., her eyelids fluttered. Ethan straightened up. "Hey, easy. Take it slow." Valentina's eyes opened little by little. The first thing in them was fear. She scanned the room like she expected the same people who hurt her to be standing there. "You're at St. Catherine's," Ethan said gently. "You're safe." This time her eyes focused on him. She stared at him for a few seconds like she was lining up a memory in her head. You, she said in a rough, broken voice. You're the one who picked me up. Ethan smiled a little and nodded. Yeah, that was me. They left me on the road. I know, Ethan said. But you made it here. You're okay. She was quiet for a moment, then asked slowly. Ambulance. How? I carried you, Ethan answered straight to the point. Almost 3 miles. Her eyes widened, like she couldn't believe someone had actually done that for her. Why? Would you do that? Because you were dying, Ethan said, as if it was obvious, and I couldn't just walk past. She pressed her lips together and closed her eyes for a second. A single tear slid down toward her ear. Did I say anything? She whispered. Yeah, Ethan said. You said they burned your wheelchair, and you said a name, Veronica. At that, pain crossed her face. She actually did it. Her voice cracked. She watched them. She didn't even stop them. Ethan leaned in a little. Listen, whoever did that to you, they're not here. The police know. They know who you are. You're safe right now. She took a slow breath. They know. Who I am? Yeah, Ethan said. Officer Martinez came by. He said your name, Valentina Cross. She let out a small, tired, bitter laugh. Great, I run a billion-dollar company. And I still end up in a ditch. Right then, Belle peeked her head through the door. Daddy, is she awake? Valentina looked at the little girl, tiny, holding her bunny, eyes full of pure concern. Is this your daughter? She asked softly. Yeah, Ethan said. This is Belle. Belle, say hi. Belle walked in without any shyness. Hi, Miss Valen. Tina. Valentina let out a weak but real laugh. That was perfect. Belle picked up the bunny from the table. I put Mr. Bunny here so you don't be scared at night. That did it. Valentina's eyes filled. She took the bunny in her weak hand and held it close. Thank you, Belle. That's very sweet. Out in the hallway, the nurse and the doctor who saw the scene shared a smile. They both knew some patients heal faster from kindness than from medicine. A little later, while the doctor was checking her vitals again, Ethan was standing near the door. Valentina turned her head toward him. Ethan, yeah, I'm here. Don't disappear, please. He answered right away, I'm not going anywhere. We'll keep coming. And he knew it. He'd just promised her something, and he was actually going to keep it. A few days went by. Valentina's breathing had steadied. Her bruises were slowly fading, but that quiet tiredness was still sitting on her face. She could talk now, even smile sometimes. But in her eyes, the fear, the shock, the betrayal, that was still alive. By now, Ethan and Belle were familiar faces in the hospital. The nurses smiled when they saw them. The doctors gave them a little nod. They came every day, bringing soup, flowers, and a little bit of peace. Belle told her stories in her small, bright voice, and Ethan just sat there thinking one thing over and over. Sometimes strangers become your people. One day, Valentina said softly, They're discharging me next week. A bit of relief appeared on Ethan's face. That's great news. But she gave a laugh that wasn't happy and it was tired. No, Ethan, it's not that great. I can't go back to my apartment. The police sealed everything. And if I go to a rehab facility, my stepsister will try again to say I'm unstable. If I check in there, it'll make all her lies sound true. Ethan frowned. Then, where are you going to go? Valentina lowered her eyes. I don't know. There was that emptiness in her voice, the kind that comes after someone has been completely broken. He stayed quiet for a few moments, then, like he'd made up his mind, he said, If you want, you can stay at my place. She looked up, surprised. What? You? Really? Yeah, Ethan said, serious now. I've got an old farmhouse. It's nothing fancy, but it's safe. Mrs. Dottie still has her husband's old wheelchair. You can use that. I can build a ramp, widen the doors, whatever you need. You'll have time to heal. Valentina stared at him for a moment, like she couldn't figure out why someone would offer something that simple and that big at the same time. Then she asked quietly, Ethan, why are you doing this? He shrugged like the answer was obvious. Because you need help, and I can help. That's it. Belle, who was sitting by the bed with her colors, chimed in right away. Yeah, my daddy can fix everything. Valentina laughed, a soft, tired, but real laugh. Your daughter is very special, Ethan. Yeah, he smiled. She's better than me. Ethan shook his head with a smile. I don't want rent. I just want company. Belle actually jumped with excitement. Yay, Miss Valentina is coming to our house. A softness came over Valentina's face. She placed her hand on Belle's head. I don't know yet, Belle. Maybe. But inside she already knew. For the first time in a long time, someone wasn't treating her like a burden or a problem. They were treating her like a human. And sometimes a safe place isn't a house. It's the people who give Valentina thought for a second, then said, okay, but I'm not staying there for free. I'll pay you. I don't want pity. You the courage to live again. The week before Valentina was discharged, Ethan barely sat down. Every morning he'd drop Belle off, finish whatever odd job he had, and then come straight back to the old farmhouse to work on it like a man on a mission. The place had always been good enough for him and Belle, creaky floors, chipped paint, a porch that leaned a little. But now someone else was coming. Someone who couldn't just step over broken things, so he started fixing them. He widened the front doorway. He took out the little step on the porch and built a proper ramp. He moved furniture around so a wheelchair could turn. He even reinforced the bathroom and put in grab bars so she wouldn't have to ask for help every time. Mrs. Dottie stopped by more than once with tea, and that knowing, look old neighbors get fixing up for someone, Ethan? She asked. He smiled without looking up. Yeah, for someone who deserves better than what happened to her. She nodded like she already knew the whole story. The day of discharge, he and Belle went to pick Valentina up. She was dressed simply, jeans, a soft sweater, hair pulled back. She still looked bruised, but not broken. When she saw Ethan in the doorway, something like relief passed over her face. I still can't believe I'm actually going with you, she said. Ethan shrugged. Well, I still can't believe you trusted me. Guess we're even. Belle waved both hands. We made a ramp. Valentina laughed. You did. Daddy did. I was the inspector. When they pulled up to the farmhouse, Valentina stared out the window for a moment. It wasn't a rich person's house. It wasn't a penthouse with glass walls and a city view. It was weathered wood, a slanted porch, trees, open sky, and a brand new wooden ramp catching the afternoon sun. This is your place? She asked quietly. Ethan killed the engine. Yeah, nothing fancy, but nobody here is trying to kill you. That made her smile. Then it's already better than my last address. He got out, set the wheelchair, and helped her down. She transferred with practiced ease. She'd clearly done this 1,000 times, but even then he stayed close just in case. As she rolled up the ramp, she ran her hand along the rail. You built this and for me? For whoever needed it, he said. Right now, that's you. Inside, she noticed it right away. Furniture pushed back. Paths clear. Rugs either removed or taped down. And in the corner of the dining room, a simple but beautiful wooden desk. She turned to him. Did you make that? He rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, figured you'd want somewhere to work. CEO types don't sit still. Her eyes shone for a second. Ethan, nobody's ever adjusted their life for me like this. They always expected me to adjust. Yeah, well, he said, looking at her straight. You almost got killed for being in the way. Not in this house. Belle came flying back in. Miss Valentina, come see my room. I put your picture on my wall. Valentina laughed, the sound filling the small house. Okay. Show me. So the three of them, a single dad, a little girl, and the woman he found in a ditch, moved through that old farmhouse like it had always been meant for three. That night, after Belle had fallen asleep, Ethan sat out on the porch steps looking up at the stars. He heard the soft roll of wheels and turned. Valentina was coming out, blanket over her legs. Too quiet inside? He asked. She smiled. Too peaceful. I'm not used to it. They sat there for a moment, listening to crickets and wind instead of sirens and hospital monitors. You've done too much for me, she said finally. You didn't have to. Ethan shook his head. Somebody did. You were thrown away by people who were supposed to protect you. That doesn't sit right with me. She looked at him, really looked. You know what the strangest thing is? She said. I'm actually starting to feel safe. Good, he said. That was the point. For the first time since that foggy morning, the story didn't feel like a tragedy anymore. It felt like the start of a different chapter. Mornings at the farmhouse weren't quiet anymore. There were new sounds now. Belle's laughter, Valentina's voice, and the faint hum of a life being rebuilt. Every day began the same way. The sun filtered through the kitchen window, and Belle would swing the door open yelling, Miss Valentina! Breakfast time. From her room down the hall, Valentina's voice would answer, smiling. Coming, Boss Bell. Her wheelchair glided softly over the wooden floor as she followed the smell of coffee and toast. And every time she saw Ethan standing at the stove, sleeves rolled up, focused, something inside her eased. There was warmth again, not just from the kitchen fire, but from belonging somewhere. CEO or not, she teased one morning. I don't think I've ever seen leadership like yours at 7 a.m. Ethan chuckled. Hey, I've got a degree in survival. Breakfast is just part of the syllabus. By noon, Valentina would sit at the handmade desk Ethan had built for her. Her laptop open, video meetings running. The farmhouse now doubling as the temporary headquarters of Cross Technologies. On the screen, her employees looked shocked, their missing CEO alive, calm, and speaking from a quiet country home. Keep the operations running, she said firmly. We're not done rebuilding yet. From outside the window, Ethan watched her for a while. The confidence, the poise. He'd seen her broken and bleeding, and now he was seeing her reclaim her power. It was like watching someone learn how to breathe again. Bell tugged his hand. Daddy, Miss Valentina looks sad today. I'm gonna make her butterflies so she remembers she can fly again. That afternoon, Bell drew dozens of paper butterflies in pink, yellow, and blue, and taped them all over Valentina's room. When Valentina wheeled in and saw them, she froze. Bell, did you make these? Uh-huh, Bell said proudly. So you have your own sky. Valentina couldn't speak for a moment. She just smiled through tears. It had been a long time since anyone brought her a bit of color. Evenings became their quiet ritual. After Belle went to bed, Ethan and Valentina would sit by the fireplace, the room flickering in gold light. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Inside, there was peace, the kind that doesn't come from silence but from safety. One night, Valentina said softly, "This house feels different since I came." Ethan smiled. "It's not just the house that changed," she looked at him. "What do you mean?" "You," he said simply. "You walked in here thinking you were broken, but you're not." Valentina shook her head gently. "You treat me like I'm whole, Ethan, like none of this," she gestured to her legs, "defines me." "Because it doesn't," he said. "You're still the same woman who fought her way back from hell. You just forgot for a while." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "And you? Who reminds you you're not alone?" He met her eyes. "Maybe you do." The fire crackled softly between them. And in that glow, surrounded by warmth and quiet understanding, something new began. Not pity, not rescue, but a connection quietly taking root. By now, the farmhouse didn't feel temporary anymore. Belle no longer called her Miss Valentina, just Val. And Ethan had stopped pretending she was a guest. She was part of their routine now, part of their quiet, healing world. But some things still went unsaid. That night was colder than usual. Wind whispered through the trees and the fire crackled softly in the hearth. Belle was asleep upstairs, Mr. Bunny tucked under her arm. The whole house was still, except for the sound of firewood popping and the faint squeak of Valentina's wheelchair rolling into the room. Ethan sat on the couch, carving a small piece of wood. She watched him for a moment before asking, "Couldn't sleep?" He smiled faintly. "Sleep doesn't come easy. Not for people who've lost too much." She moved closer. "Then why are we both awake, Ethan?" He looked up, met her eyes. "Because we both know what it's like to lose everything." Valentina took a slow breath. "I never thought the people I trusted, my own blood, would leave me on the side of a road. I built that company. I made every dollar. And when it got hard to look at me in a wheelchair, they decided to erase me instead." There was no bitterness in her voice now, only exhaustion. Ethan said quietly, "They weren't stronger than you, Val. They were just terrified of what you could survive." She stopped near the fire, the warm light flickering across her face. The bruises were fading, but the pain hadn't. "And you?" she asked softly. "How do you still manage to smile? You lost your wife, your business, your home, and yet here you are, still helping people." He stared into the fire. "I'm not okay," he admitted. "I just chose not to stay broken. When Andrea died, I shut down. For months. Then one day Belle looked at me and said, 'Sad daddies can't see happy things.' And I realized I had to decide, drown in grief or find a reason to help someone else breathe again." Valentina's voice dropped. So I became your reason? Ethan looked up and smiled gently. Yeah. And you didn't even know it. They sat there in silence for a while. Two souls who had both lost everything, yet somehow found each other in the ruins. Finally, Valentina whispered, Ethan, I'm scared. He turned. Of what? Of trusting again, she said, her voice trembling. Of letting someone in, only to watch them walk away. I trusted my family and they burned me. I trusted my board. They pushed me down the stairs. I trusted my company. They replaced me. And now, I'm starting to trust you. And that terrifies me more than anything. Ethan moved closer. Val, I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen again, but I can promise one thing. I'm not leaving. I carried you once and I'm not dropping you now. Tears welled in her eyes. You don't understand. When someone throws you out of your chair and someone else carries you instead, your heart doesn't know the difference between safety and love. Ethan reached out and took her hand gently, then let it happen. She didn't pull away. She just looked down, her fingers resting in his. You know, she whispered, I was a CEO, surrounded by power, cameras, people, and yet I've never felt as safe as I do in this tiny house. That's because, Ethan said softly, nobody here expects you to prove anything. You just get to be. She laughed, a fragile sound, somewhere between tears and relief. I've wanted that for so long, just to be. For a while they sat like that, quiet, unhurried, wrapped in the sound of the fire. Then she said almost shyly, I like it here, with you, with Belle. It feels like I got a second life, for free. Ethan smiled. You didn't get it for free, Val. You earned it. I might have picked you up from that road, but choosing to live again, that was all you. She looked up at him. No fear this time, no defense, just truth. And in the glow of that firelight, a broken CEO, a widowed father, and a quiet miracle of connection finally became something whole. The farmhouse had settled into a rhythm. Days were simple. Belle went to school, Ethan took whatever jobs he could find, and Valentina ran a billion-dollar company from a wooden desk in a creaky old house. She was different now, not because the bruises had faded, but because she finally had space to breathe. She was smiling more, sleeping better, sometimes even humming while she worked. Then, one afternoon, a familiar sound rolled up the dirt driveway. A police cruiser. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag and stepped out onto the porch. Officer Martinez climbed out, hat in hand, looking like a man who'd come with news. Afternoon, Mr. Cole. Afternoon, officer. Everything all right? Martinez glanced past him toward the house. Is Ms. Cross here? Valentina wheeled herself to the doorway. I'm here. What happened? Martinez's expression softened. It's done, we got them. Valentina's fingers tightened on her wheels. Who? Your stepsister, Veronica, and the two guys who helped dump you. We picked them up this morning. They confessed. He held up a folder. We've got attempted homicide, conspiracy, and corporate fraud. With what we have, they're not walking out anytime soon. For a moment, Valentina just stared at him, like the words needed to land piece by piece. So, it's over? She whispered. It's over, Martinez said. And for the record, you were right. They destroyed the wheelchair on purpose, to make it look like you couldn't fight back. She let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. The kind of breath you only breathe when a nightmare finally has an ending. Ethan stepped closer. See? He said quietly. You survived them. Martinez handed her some papers. Your name is clear. The board's votes are being reversed, and with the evidence you were collecting, the DA's office is building an even bigger case. You can take your company back, Ms. Cross. Her eyes glistened for a second. For days she'd been living like a person hiding. Now, she could stop. Thank you, she said, her voice steadier now, for not giving up on it. Martinez shook his head. You should be thanking the guy who carried you 3 miles. Then to Ethan, not many people would have done what you did. He tipped his hat and left. The cruiser disappeared down the road, leaving only dust and a very quiet porch behind. Ethan leaned on the railing. So, what happens now? Valentina looked out over the trees, thinking. Now? Now I go back. She turned to him. But I don't want to go back the way I left. Alone. Ethan raised a brow. Val. She didn't back down. Come to Chicago, both of you. I'm restructuring Cross Technologies. I need someone I can trust to oversee facilities and rebuilding. And I don't just want to rebuild the company. I want to rebuild my life. You and Belle, you're part of that now. Ethan gave a small, almost shy smile. Chicago's a long way from here. It doesn't have to be, she said softly. Not if you're with people who feel like home. Just then Belle came running out, hair flying. Did somebody say Chicago? Does it snow there? Can we go? Ethan laughed and scooped her up. Slow down. Snow monster. Valentina laughed too, really laughed. The way people do when the weight on their chest finally lifts. I'm not asking you to give up your world, she told Ethan. I just want you to know there's room in mine for both of you. He looked at her, really looked, at the woman he'd found broken in a ditch now taking her life back. We'll think about it, he said. Belle, of course, had already decided. We should go, Daddy. Big houses don't have holes in the roof. They all burst out laughing. And just like that, the future didn't feel scary anymore. It felt open. The morning light over Chicago was soft and silver. Snow fell quietly, dusting the streets below like powdered sugar. 15 floors above the city, Ethan Cole stood at the window of his new office, the skyline stretching out before him like a promise. The man who once walked. Dirt roads and fixed broken barns now managed construction, projects for one of the biggest tech firms in the country. Life had a strange way of rebuilding itself, if you were brave enough to start again. A gentle knock came at the door. Mr. Cole, you have a visitor. He turned and smiled. The rhythmic hum of wheelchair wheels echoed softly across the floor. Valentina Cross entered, radiant in a cream coat and that same unshakable grace she'd always carried, even when life tried to take it from her. Hey, stranger, she said with a grin. Lunch? Ethan chuckled. Boss inviting the employee? That sounds suspicious. Think of it as a performance review, she teased. Their laughter filled the room. It had been months since the trial. Veronica and the corrupt board members were behind bars. Cross Technologies had been rebuilt, not just in profit but in purpose. Under Valentina's leadership, the company now championed accessibility and empathy. Ramps, redesigned offices, inclusive hiring, all inspired by a little girl named Belle who once said, "People in wheelchairs should have butterfly wings too." That line had gone viral. And just like that, the world started calling Valentina the Butterfly CEO. Later that afternoon, they sat together at a small cafe tucked beside the river. Snowflakes drifted past the window, melting into the city lights. Valentina reached into her bag and slid a small velvet box across the table. What's this? Ethan asked. Open it. Inside was an old key. Polished, silver, familiar. The farmhouse, she said softly. I had it restored. New roof, new windows, everything. Thought maybe we could use it as our escape when life gets too loud. Ethan's throat tightened. Val, I don't deserve you. Her expression softened. Don't say that. You found me when I was broken and you didn't walk away. That kind of love doesn't rescue, it revives. She pulled out a second box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, engraved with small coordinates. Ethan turned it over and smiled through tears. These are where you found me, she finished. Then with trembling hands but steady eyes, she said, Ethan Cole, marry me. Not because you saved me, but because we choose each other, every single day. Ethan couldn't speak. He just nodded, eyes wet, and leaned forward. When their lips met, the world outside the window disappeared. It wasn't the kiss of rescue. It was the kiss of home. That evening, they picked up Belle from school. The moment she saw Valentina's hand, her eyes widened. Mr. Bunny was right, she squealed. We're a family now. Ethan lifted her high in his arms, laughing. Yes, sweetheart. We're a family, the best kind, the kind we choose. That night back home, snow blanketed the city. The fireplace crackled softly. Valentina leaned against Ethan, her hand resting on his. You ever think about that morning? She asked quietly. The fog, the road. What if you hadn't stopped? He smiled. Then fate would have found another way to make me stop. She laughed. That warm, unguarded laugh he loved so much. Maybe broken roads still lead home? Ethan looked at her, at the woman he'd once found left for dead, and nodded. They do, always. Outside, the snow kept falling, gentle, endless, like a promise that life, no matter how shattered, can always begin again. Not an ending, a beginning.